Morning. You know, it used to be a noble cause to be a politician, to be a representative of the people. It used to be just normal Joes like you and I, who'd be a farmer or a owner of a general store or maybe a local attorney or just a normal guy from the private sector. It was an inconvenience to be a politician. You know, you used to meet with the people in your area, in your district, have them voice their concerns, come up with kind of a consensus, and then you'd have to make the long trek to Washington to explain the will of your people and vote accordingly. And it was a noble cause. There wasn't much money involved. It wasn't a money thing. It was a representative government. Now we have politicians, you know, it's a career to be a politician now. We have, you know, these PACs and these big donors and investing millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into these campaigns for politicians. So anytime you get money involved, people get greedy. So being a politician became a money grab, not because of the salary, but because of the special interest groups. So it's no longer representing the people, it's representing these groups, you know, the donor class, whoever's going to contribute the most to your campaign. You're representing their cause. The big corporations. Look at big tech. Look at Twitter, Facebook, you know, Zuckerberg, all those guys donating tens and tens of millions of dollars to these political campaigns, donating to get people to vote. And they're all Democrat, you know. So on paper, I suppose we have a representative government, but they're representing the will of the donor class. They're not representing you and I. They might have a R or a D next to their name, but that doesn't matter anymore. They're all in the same class. They're the political elite and the corporate elite, the media elite in this country have taken over the government. And this is nothing new. But it's important to understand that the founding fathers of the country did not anticipate it that way. They were very prescient in their way they wrote the Constitution with checks and balances and such. But this was not designed to have a political elite class. The politicians were supposed to be the people. We've gotten so far removed from this, and you know, you look at a guy like Mitch McConnell, who of course yesterday or 2 days ago was on the Senate floor congratulating Joe Biden. Well, we're in the middle of disputing it. He's supposed to represent you know, in the Senate, the Republican Party. Now, the leader of the Republican Party right now, Donald Trump, is contesting the election. He has not conceded anything. And we have Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor congratulating his old buddy Joe Biden. Now, why is that? Well, the short answer is probably, well, they're just all corrupt politicians and they'll be glad to have the bull in the china shop, Trump, out of there so they can get back to their old ways. But it's a little bit deeper. I encourage you to look into Elaine Chao, who is Mitch McConnell's wife. They're very closely tied. In fact, I think they're in the ownership group, majority ownership group, of a shipping company in China that's directly tied to the CCP. So Mitch McConnell's wife and Mitch McConnell own part of a shipping company that is directly tied to the Chinese Communist Party. So there you go. Just seems like China has got their tentacles all over the place in Washington and elsewhere. They would love nothing better to get rid of Trump. Trump was finally calling China out. He realized that Russia was a second fiddle. The whole Russia-Iran thing, sure, they would love to manipulate some stuff within the United States. But the true adversary, the true enemy is China. China's total economy, their GDP, is close to the size of the United States. They have a population of 1.5 billion people almost. They're an authoritarian regime. They have active concentration camps within their country. I've never been to China, but my understanding is when you're a tourist there, you're not seeing the real China. They put on a show for the tourists. The rest of the country, there's no environmental protections. And listen, I'm not some crazy environmentalist, but the United Nations is saying that the China model is what they want for the future. And at the other side of the mouth, they're saying that we have the biggest crisis known to man is climate change. And their ideal system of government is China, which has zero environmental regulations. So, what's going on here? And Trump was calling them out. He called it out that China was able to get favored nation status within the United Nations based on the fact that they're a developing nation. China is a developing nation. The oldest culture in our society, 5,000 some odd years old, is a developing nation with a GDP the size of the United States, with 1.4 billion people, with nuclear weapons. It does 70% of the manufacturing for the entire world. Is a developing country? I don't think so. You compare that to Russia. Their GDP is about the size of Texas's. So, China's the true adversary here. All this Russia talk, that's just, they're trying to get your eye off what's really going on. So how can guys like Mitch McConnell and a bunch of other Republicans, rhinos, not fight for what we've, seen within this election? How can they not be out in the media pushing these courts to hear our cases? We haven't even been able to argue the merits on all but one or two cases. Every judge out there is just throwing it out. We've seen the evidence. The forensic exam of the machines where they had a 68% failure rate. The invalid ballot percentage is like a third of what it has been before for mail-in absentee ballots. Meaning that if there was a mistake on the ballot, it goes in the invalid box, basically. So we have 10 times the amount of mail-in ballots this year than we've ever had. But the failure rate or the invalidity rate is a third of what it's ever been. This is common sense. It tells you something nefarious is going on here. We have the truck driver from Pennsylvania to New York says he's driving ballots across state lines from one state to another. Illegal. We know for a fact that 4 states changed their election laws outside their legislatures. Totally against what the Constitution of the United States says. That's not even alleging fraud. That's alleging a constitutional issue. And we can't get a judge to hear this? What's going on here? On video, in Georgia, ballots under a table being counted after the Republican election workers were told to go home. And we can't get a judge to hear this? Well, Justice Roberts might have given us a clue. One of his staffers came out and said that when the Supreme Court was meeting to discuss what to do with the Texas case, this staffer overheard from right outside the doors where all the 9 justices were meeting, Justice Roberts yelling and screaming that one of the other justices brought up the Bush versus Gore case in 2000. So this staffer claims he could hear Justice Roberts yelling at the top of his lungs, "I don't want to hear anything about Bush versus Gore. We didn't have riots then." So he's basically saying the Supreme Court of the United States is letting domestic terrorists, street violent, Antifa types dictate what the court is and is not going to do. Is there no check on the Supreme Court? I mean, is there nowhere else to go from there? I don't know. Can we get into a military court? I really don't know. You know, in Trump's executive order from 2018 that he wrote and signed about foreign interference in our elections, states that from 45 days from the election, the national intelligence agencies, all the intelligence agencies have to submit a report to him within 45 days of the election with all the intelligence that they can gather about whether there was foreign interference. So Ratcliffe comes out yesterday and says, well, Gina Haspel over at CIA says she's not going to have her information ready on time. This is a direct order from the President of the United States to give a report within 45 days. And that 45-day mark is going to come and go without the information that the President requested. Trump is battling every intelligence agency. I don't even know what he has behind him now. Does he have the military? I don't know. You know, he doesn't have the media. He doesn't have the Washington establishment. Who knows about the military? It's basically Trump and the American people, or his supporters anyways, which I think is much bigger than the 75 million reported votes that he got. You know, you just look at the machines. They proved it that if you go in and vote for Joe Biden, it counts for 1.5 votes. You go vote for Trump, it counts for 0.75. How do judges not want to hear this? It's the establishment, all these judges, the court system against Trump. They need to get back to greasing each other's palms, the old way of corruption before Trump took office and really started to try to hold people accountable. And I hope he declassifies everything. How anybody could support the Democrat Party is beyond me. Why is it that they want to make it so much easier to vote? Why do they want to lower the voting age? You hear this in California, they want to lower it to 16. Well, I'll tell you why. Because they bank on having low information voters. They're going to dangle a carrot out in front of them and say, we're going to, give you this free stuff or this government program. Just vote Democrat. And the conservatives or the Republicans are the adults in the room going, no, we can't just give everything away. So what do the Democrats do? Instead of playing within the boundaries and playing by the rules, they just change the rules. And the Republicans are so feckless that they allow it to happen. They want to lower the voting age. They want to vote later and later. They want zero checks to make sure that the ballots are done correctly. They don't want any voter ID. Why is that? The same reason they cry about everything else. The R word. Racist. Everything is racist to them. Nobody was thinking about race until the Democrats started throwing it around and they make a big issue in the media out of it. We got to continue to fight here. We can't give up on this Trump situation now. Because if we just focus on 2024 or 2022 and some of the congressional races, in between now and then, because we're going to lose Georgia. I can guarantee you that right now. They're just going to cheat like they did before. But we can't give up on this Trump thing now, because they're going to change everything. They're going to add Supreme Court justices. They're going to add states, which will add Congress members. And it'll be Democrat authoritarian rule forever. The United States will be California. Is that what people want? They want homeless encampments everywhere? Do they want the entire economy to be totally broke because of government programs? Do they want drugs everywhere to be legalized? Look in Portland, Oregon. Heroin is not illegal anymore. You can walk around with heroin and a needle in your pocket, and it's perfectly fine, right? But you can't go out and protest that your business is closed. That's against the rules. and you got to wear a mask. That's what this entire country is going to be if these people get power. We have to continue to fight for future generations. I'm not okay with my daughter living in Portland, and you shouldn't be either. So it's incredibly frustrating. We don't even have to allege fraud in this election. It's these states operating outside of their legislatures, which the Constitution very clearly instructs the states to do. So I don't know what the answer is at this point. I know Trump's not going to stop fighting. I don't know what the next step is. You know, the intelligence agency's not getting this report to Trump. It's just beyond. It shows you everything there is. Everybody's against him. So that leaves us like one of two options. If they're able to steal everything, secede and fight against the Union, just like the Confederate States of America did during the Civil War, or do we try to figure out how to live within these new boundaries, these new whatever the United States is going to turn into? So if you live in a blue state, you got to work on getting out of there. You got to get to a red state. I live in a red state, but I own a business in a blue state, and just seeing the difference in just driving down the street and potholes in the road or homeless encampments and stuff like that, it's night and day between the red and the blue state. You know, I'm very confident in our sheriff in my town, but where my business is, it's just all Democrat, social justice, go ahead and riot and loot and burn. So I don't know what the next step is here for Trump. Hopefully he can get this intelligence report in quickly, and there's some foreign interference there, and we can start holding somebody accountable. But what's going to happen is they're going to get away with this steal, and they'll do some half-ass investigation over the next few years, and 3 years from now people basically forget about it, and two low-level Democrat election workers or whatever will go to jail for 6 months, and it'll all be forgotten. There'll be so many scandals in between now and then, everybody will just forget about it. So I'm incredibly frustrated. It's incredibly depressing to see that they're able to get away with something this big, and we have it on videotape. Basically, it's like somebody committing a crime on videotape against your family. You could give it to the judge and say, look, this guy broke into my house and stole all my stuff with my family sitting there. I have it on video. And the judge goes, it doesn't matter. We're not going to look at it. I'm frustrated. You should be frustrated. It's a very sad time for our country. I understand Trump can be a little difficult to get along with, but hey, you've never had a boss that was, difficult, or he didn't treat you, He didn't treat you like a princess all the time, but you still get paid well, you still got great benefits, you're safe, all this stuff. Leaders, good, effective leaders, can be jerks. It's not a perfect world. It's the proof should be in the pudding. The proof should be the economy, the safety, your prosperity, your retirement accounts. All this stuff is what you should be voting on, not, oh, Trump's a jerk. So people get what they ask for, man. You vote Democrat, you're asking for all this nonsense. Sorry to tell you, but you're on the wrong team. Hell, even the Republicans isn't the right team anymore. We've seen how feckless they are. They're just as corrupt as some of these Democrats. And I just hope that this China infiltration isn't as bad as I feel like it is, because I don't want to live in China. Well, we'll see what happens. Have a good day.